Always a first time for everything. Why not make it your first Bloodstock? Hello, welcome back to Crushing Sounds. My name is Chris. Today's video is inspired by the amount of people that I have seen on Facebook, Reddit, various outlets, asking questions along the lines of, it's my first Bloodstock this year, anything I should know? I figured, why not have a video which covers all the basic stuff that you should know to be fully prepared for the UK's best, and yes I said best, heavy metal festival. So hopefully this will help people to get the most out of Bloodstock and things that I have learnt over going every year since 2017, essentially. I won't be covering all the majority of the very basic rules and general information, band shit and what they recommend you bring and all that stuff. That's all readily available on the Bloodstock official website. I'll put a link down below if you really need me to help you get to the Bloodstock website, but it should have all the really basic rudimentary details that you might need to know. A lot of the common questions that I get seen is about, which I'll be addressing, is sort of, what's the main party campsite? When should I arrive on the first day? How easy or difficult is it to get into the festival? But the most common question, which I'll just quickly go over now, which I see all the time, is how does it compare to Download Festival? I've been to Download Festival twice. I went in 2015 and 16, I think. Both times were a washout. They were very, very tricky in the rain regard. 2017 was my first ever Bloodstock, and I've been going every single year ever since. The only year I missed was 2020 because of COVID. So it was love at first sight at Bloodstock, I'll tell you that much. If you've watched this channel before, I've bored you to death on why I love Bloodstock so much. But in terms of what's the difference between, because a lot of people have been to Download and they're going to Bloodstock for the first time. If you want to compare the two, a Download I think is like 80,000, 90,000 people. It's massive for a rock festival, basically. Bloodstock is 20,000. It used to be 15, it crept up to 20,000 a few years ago. I don't think it's gotten any bigger than that, but 20,000 is about what it is, so it's much, much smaller than Download in every sense. There's less people, there are smaller stages, and it's a much, much smaller site. I'll cover those specific details as we go through, but if you want sort of the experience side answer to the question of what's the difference between Download and Bloodstock, for me, and this is purely personal opinion, if you love Download, all the power to you. I did enjoy myself at those 2 years at Download, but Download to me feels very corporate now, very overblown, and trying to please too many different people. It tries to be a rock fans festival, an emo fan festival, a metal fans festival, a pop punk fan festival. It's all sorts of demographics. I know plenty of people love that. It gives you the variety, stuff to see. You come away seeing lots of different bands. Bloodstock isn't that, it's a heavy metal festival. And not only that, it's a heavy metal festival run by metalheads for metalheads. You feel the passion that the organisers put in to Bloodstock. Even when you're not at the festival, you go on any Facebook group or Reddit post or Instagram or whatnot, it's the actual organisers who get involved in the forums and the discussions, talking to the people that go. It's such a family community vibe at Bloodstock, and it's one of the reasons I love it so much. So if you're a Download veteran and you're more into the rock punk kind of thing, but you want to give Bloodstock a try, and you might be worried about it being a sea of rowdy metalheads, don't get me wrong, metalheads can be rowdy, but it is so much nicer in terms of atmosphere than Download for my money. I've never had a bad experience at Bloodstock with general fucktardery or knobheads like that, or people who are a bit kooky and weird and, taking lots of illicit substances behind the bogs trying to ruin everyone's time. Everyone at Bloodstock just is having the time of their lives and just wants everyone else to also have the time of their lives. It's such a celebration being back at Bloodstock. It's so friendly, and yeah, I love it. Destroys Download in atmosphere completely for me. But okay, let's talk about things you should know, tips and tricks for Bloodstock. Let's get the really basic festival stuff out of the way first, in case you've never been to a UK festival before. This being in the UK, I will state the blindingly obvious, but it always bears repeating because so many people forget this: pack for all weathers, and I mean all weather. The only thing you really shouldn't plan for is snow. I've been to festivals which go from blazing sun to pissing it down within the span of an hour. I've been to festivals where it's just been all of one and none of the other. Festivals that are washouts, Download 2016, and record high heats like last year's Bloodstock. Both can be really, really rough, but both can be prepared for, and you will have such an easier time if you are ready for them. And I don't care what the forecast says before you go. Pack for rain anyway, pack for heat anyway. Trust me, a couple more minutes shoving that rain jacket or poncho into your bag amongst all your cans of beer is going to be time well spent. You'll thank yourself for it. Secondly, don't skimp on your tent. If you're one of those people who love living on the edge and bring like the crappiest tent possible, or even don't bring a tent at all and try and crash with other people, you do you. If you enjoy doing that at a festival, more power to you. I could not imagine doing that. I'm not saying you have to splash out on like a plus £200 3-compartment octo pad. That doesn't even make sense, but you know what I mean. But a £20 pop-up tent is probably not going to cut it. Sure, it sounds great. You just lob it in, your tent is there, ready to go, and you can get to drinking straight away. But if a storm comes through, like we had the infamous wind at, I think, Download 2019, I think it was, you might find your tent in a different campsite than where you left it. And that's not going to be fun, trying to find that when you're blind drunk, or just in the pitch dark, really. And just a general tip, bring some reflective foil to put over the top of your tent for when that heat starts banging down, even when it's not too hot at Bloodstock. It's pretty open and exposed, so that tent's going to get really, really warm really, really fast, and waking up at 8 in the morning and it already feeling like a sauna is not fun. So you finished up with your 5th band of the day, still plenty more to come. It's 5 or so in the afternoon and you start to feel faint. Turns out you haven't drunk any water since you woke up. Don't get dehydrated. It's so easily done, even when it's not a heat wave going on, and when the hours are flying by and you're having the time of your life and you're drinking alcohol. It's a recipe for disaster, and it's not worth being careless. Bloodstock and I think Download, both for some reason, don't offer water at the bars, which is a really big problem if you ask me. But there are water points around the arena and the campsites. Use them. I know the queues were long last year's Bloodstock and this year's Download, but it's just not worth skipping out on. Just drink water, just do it. More general tip, this applies to any festival. I like to make a note of all the stage times ahead of the festival to take with me, so I don't have to buy a lanyard at the festival. I have in the past, I'm sure plenty of you have, used Clash Finder, which is a website, to create and nicely lay out a schedule. I love how Clash Finder lays it out. It's so easy just to cross-reference all the bands and color code them and whatnot. The only problem is, in the last few years, Clash Finder's got less and less accurate. I really don't know why. I guess support for the website has gone down, even though it's still updated with all the bands, basically, but don't rely on it for times anymore, because it's not especially accurate. Use it to lay out the bands you want to see, sure, but in the run-up to the festival, when the times on the app go live, just note down all the bands you want to see on there, and keep an eye out at the festival for any changes. Right, so let's talk about Bloodstock. I will timestamp in the description below if you want to skip to a certain section, so you don't have to sit through all of this, but we'll start with arriving on the first day. So you've arrived at Bloodstock, and you've parked up. Awesome, we are here. Now we just need to get into the campsite. And I'm afraid this is probably the hardest part of Bloodstock. At least you're starting with the difficult bit. As we can see on the site map, which should be on your screen now, standard parking is situated across a road and a walk from the main entrance. This map is not to scale, I don't think. It's actually a bit of a hike. Nothing at all like any of the walks at Download, to be clear, but it's the longest single bit of walking you're likely to do at Bloodstock. And fair warning, the walk along this path is not level, and you cannot walk on the road adjacent to it. You must walk on the grassy verge next to it, and it's as uneven as Metallica's last album. I have seen many trolleys go capsizing along here, with no doubt quite the repacking job, and holding up the people behind them. I take a big camping rucksack on my back to carry the bulk of my stuff, tent under my arm, which I tag team with my brother. If you can meet up with other people to share the load, that is definitely the way to go. If you're on your own, you might be worth doing multiple trips to the car. You are allowed to come and go from the campsite once you've got your wristband. You don't need to queue up in the main queue again. I would make all your trips, though, of course, as early as you can. You don't want to leave too much stuff in your car for too long. One of the benefits, though, of getting a coach to the festival is you get dropped off right by the main entrance. So if that's how you're getting to the festival, all that hassle is avoided. I don't know if there's many spots left for Big Green Coach this year, but for future years, it's definitely worth considering. So you arrive at the front gate of Bloodstock, and man, is that a queue. Bloodstock are adamant that if you arrive at the car park before 12, you will be turned away. This has never been true, at least as long as I've ever been going. Mike and I have arrived as early as 10 in the morning and people have started queuing. Evidently, enough people show up early every year that it's just simpler to let people park and get to the front gate and make them wait there rather than cars stretching for miles and miles and miles down the road. If you're a download this year. That being said, though, if you do turn up early and the marshals tell you to turn around, don't be an arse and just do what you're told. They're only doing their job. Bloodstock has one entrance and one entrance only for standard camping, and it gets big really fast. It says arrive at 12. I would never get there later than 11, or that queue is going to get quite large. Maybe again, probably never going to be as bad as download was this year, but still not going to be that fun to sit in that queue for too long and be really far back. Now, to be fair, Bloodstock have improved massively in recent years at getting that queue moving faster. In 2017, it was dismally slow. Last year, though, was lightning quick. So fingers crossed that trend continues. Right, so you're through the gate and you have your wristband. Welcome to Bloodstock. Before you start drinking, yes, before you start drinking, you need to find a place to pitch up your tent. Bloodstock has various campsites, all Norse themed, of course. They are Midgard, Ironwood, Valhalla, Asgard, Jotunheim, Ragnarok, and Hell. Serpent's Lair is a VIP camping, which I have never done, so I won't be covering that here. I'll quickly summarise the main campsites. Midgard is your biggest campsite and is well known for being the party campsite. This is for those who want to revel every waking second of Bloodstock. Go to sleep as the sun is coming up, if you go to sleep at all, and enjoy raucous nights of unofficial wrestling rings, party vibes, the occasional chanting of All Hail the Hypno-Toad, and, binge ousting. Honestly, it's really not that chaotic compared to other festivals. I have heard horror stories of party campsites at Reading and Leeds Festival. Only thing to consider really at Midgard is how long the noise is going to go on for into the night. Every once in a while I have known Midgard to settle down by about 2 in the morning, but those are the very rare exceptions. If you camp here, be prepared to only sleep when you're too exhausted not to, or if you've passed out from being intoxicated, basically. If you need your sleep to function, do not camp here. You'll only have yourself to blame. Again, noise is really the only factor you're going to have to worry about in Midgard. If you don't want to necessarily join in the festivities, yet you don't mind going to bed really late, then by all means camp in Midgard. No one forces anyone, as far that I've ever seen, no one forces anyone to join in the Midgard shenanigans if you're in Midgard. Also, I guess we got to talk about binge ousting. Binge ousting is the unofficial, I guess, sport of Midgard. It happens every year. It's orchestrated by the same ringmaster, I guess, every single year. So it's where people steal, and yes, I said steal, the big industrial bins of the festival. We put one person on top of one, another person on top of another, and then we run them at each other until they collide. Last one standing stays on and challenges the next person. If no one falls off when they collide, you have to wrestle each other off. And again, last man standing. This happens every year. It's a tradition. It is dumb, but I watch it every time. It's complete lunacy, and do it at your own risk. It's really, really unsafe, as you can imagine. It normally gets shut down by security. Some years they're more lenient. They might let it run for a little bit and then move in to shut it down. Other years they've put a stop to it immediately. I think 2017, the first year me and Mike went, they had a cavalcade of injuries. So 2018, their bins were nowhere to be seen. It was just not happening. Unfortunately, rubbish was a big issue that year because of that. So 2019 they brought it back and the carnage just started all over again. Feel free to watch them. I would not recommend getting on those bins. It's a very surefire way to ruin the festival if something goes horrifically wrong. But just so you know, it happens in Midgard, it's loud, and it's a staple of the festival.
Get him, Ollie! Get him! Get him! Come on, Ollie! Drag the keg off! Suck him off! Go on, Ollie! Fuck him up! Suck him off! Suck him off!
Midgard is also where you'll find the majority of the amenities that you're going to get at the campsites, such as the showers, usually a small bar, the supermarket, Fat Frank's, and the Samaritan's tent. Fat Frank's are your go-to camping shop in case you need to replace something broken or you've forgotten regarding your tent, like camping chairs, and they also do blow-up beds as well. They'll blow them up for you for an extra charge. Great shop in a pinch. It's saved our asses a couple of times when we've had tent pegs go missing or broken and that kind of thing. I'm also a massive advocate for the Samaritans, a wonderful charity that do such good work. They have a tent at Bloodstock in Midgard where you can just go and chat if you're stressed, upset, anxious, depressed, or anything, or if you just need someone to talk to about anything. You can they're open throughout the day, and you can go there and shoot the shit, basically, chat with people, and they're an amazing charity. They are usually pitched directly opposite Fat Frank's on the corner. Asgard and Valhalla campsites are both placed either side of the main campsite entrance as you enter the festival. Valhalla is the bigger one of the two and has the food stand and the barbecue pit assigned for both campsites. The benefit of these campsites is they are right by the entrance to the festival. You can set up right away on the Thursday or whatever day you arrive and get away really fast on Monday. However, you're not going to find places in this campsite if you arrive too late on the Thursday, I don't think. Asgard usually fills up really fast, so if you're desperate to get in Asgard, get in that queue all the earlier if you plan to camp here. Ironwood and Jotunheim are both found off of Midgard. You get to Ironwood by travelling along the left-hand side of Midgard, and there is a little opening in the tree line where you can get through to Ironwood. Beyond Ironwood is Jotunheim. Ironwood is really popular as Bloodstock's, I guess, second party campsite. Usually, I stress usually, this campsite gets quieter in the evenings before Midgard. However, it being placed right next to it, sometimes shenanigans do spill over. People love Ironwood though as a place to go party in Midgard, and when they've had their fun, they've had their fill, they can stroll back to their tent in Ironwood as it's right next to it and hit the hay, basically. Jotunheim is just beyond Ironwood, which never normally has anything particularly crazy going on. The only time I've seen shenanigans go on down there is when people are tracking down bins because they've been taken away by security. So if you want your sleep, but don't want the restrictions of a midnight curfew, this is a really good choice. You have to pass through a bit of Midgard and most of Ironwood to get to it. This will probably be your longest walk to the arena if you choose this campsite. Hell is tucked away in the bottom corner of the other end of Midgard. Again, usually pretty quiet, but again it is right next to Midgard. The only issues with this one, and I guess the back of Ironwood, as I said, is they are the furthest from the entrance to the arena. Though that being said, it's really not that bad, for reasons I'll explain in a minute. Finally, Ragnarok is your quiet campsite. This one is recommended for families, but anyone is welcome to pitch here. The important note regarding Ragnarok is its midnight curfew. No noise at all is allowed in this campsite after midnight, or you will be immediately ejected. I don't know exactly how strict it is. I've never camped there or even walked through it, to be honest. I don't know if low-level conversation is allowed. Probably not. And let's be honest, if you do find yourself in this campsite, just respect everyone else's choices for low noise. If you want to stay up late and party, go to Midgard. and then go back to Ragnarok when you're done. Don't continue the party at your tent. Every campsite has a barbecue pit, with the exception of Asgard. As I said, they share theirs with Valhalla. It is here you can use your disposable barbecues or portable camping stoves with hard fuel only, no liquid. The website isn't especially clear on whether you can use Hexi stoves at your tent. In the past, certainly last year, it was a clear-cut no. The heat, as I've said, was monolithic, so fair enough. I'm going to assume it's the same this year. I can't see why they'd have fire pits, yet let you cook at your tent. And if the heat does spike again, and this year, don't risk it, for fuck's sake. Just go to the barbecue points. If you need hot water for noodles or coffee you brought in yourself, the food vendors at the campsites will often provide boiled water. If you ask, you will have to pay for it, of course. Your only options for showers in the whole festival is Midgard. They are open 7 till 7, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 7 till 10 on Monday. They cost £4 a pop, and it will be the longest queues of anything you see at Bloodstock. I'm not joking. Seriously, if you desperately need a shower in the morning, get in the line before 7 in the morning. They usually get quieter in the afternoon if you don't mind missing a band or two. Here's the big boon of Bloodstock, though. Well, one of them, because I love everything about it. All of these campsites are relatively close to the arena compared to Download Festival. Even in the furthest corners of the furthest campsite, you won't be walking more than 15 minutes maximum to get to the main stage of the arena and back. It utterly destroys Download in that regard. Not to mention, the site of Bloodstock is flat, so even if it gets muddy, it's much easier to get around than Download's muddy slip and slide. Right, so we're all camped up, set up, watered, beard. Let's get to the main event. Let's get into the arena. The arena opens usually at 5 on Thursday, with the first band playing on the Sophie stage, usually around 6. Again, check the timetables near the time. The rest of the arena does also open. You usually can't approach the main stage, though. You can usually get around the back of it, though, to get to like bars and shit. Not all the stalls and vendors open straight away, though, as far as I'm aware. But the bars do, and that's the important thing. Although, not the New Blood, though, I don't think. We'll come back to bars in a minute. Take this Thursday afternoon as an opportunity to explore the arena, get a sense of where all the amenities are, water points, stages, etc., and soak in the atmosphere. You're at Bloodstock. Just writing down all the basic stuff in the arena that you might need to know. Phone charging and lockers are right by the entrance to the arena as you go in, on your left. It's best you pre-book these if you've not done so already. You can find a link to the phone charging section of the event info bit of Bloodstock's website. I never bring a smartphone to Bloodstock. Why would I want that stress of losing it or damaging it? I use a cheap Nokia brick, which holds the same charge for a week. It's just less stressful that way. But I know people that swear by these lockers, so worth the investment. And a locker is always nice if you do need to keep some valuables on you. Medical tent is located just past the Sophie stage toilets. I remember my first ever Bloodstock on Thursday. Someone had gone a bit too hard too quickly and passed out in the middle of the Sophie tent. I ran to the medic tent to get help. They said they'd be there, and they were there before I'd even got back. So I can attest that they're very helpful, very attentive, and they will look after you. You'll also find non-food vendors in the arena, just outside the Sophie stage. There's kind of a square of them. This is for your typical memorabilia, patches, shirts, accessories, and of course, Viking drinking horns. For official band and Bloodstock merchandise, the stand is situated just before the Lemmy bar as you're approaching it from the Sophie stage, I guess. Queues for this get mental, especially right when the arena opens each day, so either get there as soon as you can or wait for the queues to die down later on. But of course, they might run out of stuff by then. You're going to need to judge that for yourself. The cash points will be situated here too. I'll just quickly cover this now. Bloodstock is, again, this year, a cash and card festival. You can use either at any bar or vendor at the festival. So if you don't like to carry lots of cash on you and just want to use your card, you can do that. Or vice versa, if you don't want to carry your card with you, you can just use the cash that you bring with you. If you do need cash points, of course, there is a charge, and not a trivial one at that. Best to budget carefully if you intend to bring just cash to the festival. I'll go over the cost of things in a little bit. In the same area, you'll find the Info Lost Property 10. Saved the singer of my band last year when he lost his wallet. People at Bloodstock are great. They look out for each other, and it got handed in as you went there. Straight away, it was there. So definitely worth doing that if you've lost anything. The signing tent is in sort of just to the right of the main stage as you're looking directly at it. They announce who's going to be in the signing 10 really close to the festival, so you don't have much time to put that into your schedule if suddenly a band you really want to meet comes up, but you know, I guess they can't narrow that down until nearer the time anyway. If you're hell-bent on meeting your favourite band, get there earlier than you think, especially for the really, really big bands that are going to be at the signing 10, because the queues will stretch to ridiculous lengths way faster than you can predict, and you never really know when they're going to cut it off. And it's not like they have a man walking down the line saying it's going to cut off here, please don't start queuing. They'll just call it at one point. So to avoid disappointment, get there for the end of the previous band that are doing their signing, if not sooner. If you've done signing before, you know it's always a risk, it's always a gamble, but you know, it's always worth the risk sometimes to meet your favourite bands, to get your favourite shit signed. So now for one of the other important aspects, the food vendors. It is getting increasingly obvious going to festivals that food vendor prices are rising every single year, and they're getting very close to the point where it's just unfeasible for a lot of people at this point. Unless you budget a decent amount of the money that you intend to bring on food, you will struggle to get something substantial at a decent price. If money is a concern for you, I would seriously consider bringing plenty of food with you to get through the days, and avoid relying on the food vendors, just because these prices rack up so fast after you've had a couple a day. You cannot bring food into the arena, of course, but I know plenty of people who cook their own food in the campsite at the barbecue pits, and that's more than enough for them to get by. If you don't want to bring a barbecue or hexi stove, like I never really do that, load up on cereal bars, energy bars, snacks and the like. It will save you from only having to rely on the food vendors. It's not the worst thing in the world to maybe get one meal a day from them, but any more than that, it's going to go way beyond reasonable. Way over £10 to get anything close to substantial is really, really rough. You know how much food you need to keep you going, so please consider beforehand. None of these prices are, I guess, reasonable considering what you're going to get for them. That being said, while those prices are certainly up there, we have experienced a fair few of the food vendors that frequent Bloodstock, so these are the ones that are coming back this year that I have an opinion of. Mac and Cheese, one of the most divisive food vendors returning to Bloodstock. Mike says avoid them like the plague. I'm an advocate for them. I'm not saying it's quality food by any stretch of the imagination. However, it's filling. They don't have you running to the bogs, if you know what I mean. You get options for if you want it in a bowl or want it in a wrap. You get a couple choice of toppings. Not cheap, but it's not the most extortionate thing you'll see at this festival by far. If you want a hearty meal, maybe avoid. If you just need something to keep you going, it's more than sufficient for that, in my opinion. Barnaby Pie, if you want a hearty meal, you go here. A good spread of proper British pies, meat or vegetarian, with gravy of course if you want it. It's filling and it's delicious. I've bought many of these over the years. Wrap Shack, kebabs. If you compare the price of the doner kebabs over your local chippy, it's horrifying. However, if you can swing it, you know how much a greasy kebab is just what you need after a day of drinking. Add a day of moshing, nothing quite hits the spot like it. King of Yorkie puddings. You want a big meal? This is where you go. Meals in a Yorkshire pudding bowl, and it's as messy as it sounds, but man is it glorious. Very dear, to be fair, but it's filling and will get you through the afternoon. Baguette and Toasty Shack, usually something like this in most of the campsites. Very bog standard stuff. I use them in a pinch for something quick. Over the odds for what you get though. But it's not the most extortionate thing in the world. Bunny Chow. I have never eaten at Bunny Chow, but I intend to this year to maybe see what all the fuss is about. You ask on any Bloodstock related forum what the best food vendor is, so many people will say Bunny Chow. They have a wide array of options, and one of the few vegan options around the site as well. Hopefully we get more of those in the future for the vegan eaters at the festival. But supposedly awesome, so a good one to go check out. There are some other staple ones returning this year, but I haven't explored most of them, to be fair, because it's just such a money sink. If there are any food vendors that anyone watching has experienced at Bloodstock and suspects do come back and has thoughts, feel free to put them down below. There are certainly plenty of different choices, though, that you can go for. Rotisserie chicken, donuts, noodles, gyozas. So there's plenty of choice if you could pay for it. Fortunately, I can safely say a lot of the food there ranges from decent to pretty good. Not great for the price, but decent. So you shouldn't have to worry about paying over the odds for something really fucking disgusting. Right, so where can you get something to drink?
The most important question of all, that one.
There are quite a few drinks, stands, bars, vendors to choose from at Bloodstock. In terms of main bars, you have the Lemmy Bar, the Sophie Lancaster Stage Bar, and the New Blood Bar. We'll call it the Sophie Bar, basically for ease. These are your main bars with all your main drink options. A spread of some ales, lagers, ciders, and fancier stuff like spirits and wines, of course. Lemmy Bar is by far the most stocked, with many guest ales being on offer here as well. If there are super special one-off concoctions for a specific year, you'll find them at the Lemmy Bar, and these sell out fast. I remember when Hobgoblin launched their IPA, they had it at Bloodstock, and it sold out by the end of Saturday, even though it was priced higher. That one was at all the bars, to be fair, but my point still stands. It was a special new release thing, and it ran out in no time. And I've seen plenty of special guest ales appear at the Lemmy Bar. By the next day, they're gone. So if you see something that you really want to try, get it sooner rather than later, because it may well be gone. In fact, it probably will be gone. Lemmy Bar gets the most busy by far. There is seating there, but don't count ever on getting a spot unless you're there right at the beginning of the day and hold it for the whole day. It has a good view of the main stage and the screens as well, which makes it a really popular hangout point, especially during the headliners. Next, and my favourite bar, is the Sophie Bar. This bar is placed within the Sophie Lancaster tent at the back to the right as you enter the tent. Here you'll find the standard drinks for the festival, less of the guest beers that you get at the Lemmy, but the bar is quite long, well stocked, and you're right there in the Sophie tent, so it's dead easy to get a drink between bands and then get back to rocking out. Late night entertainment takes place usually within the Sophie tent, so this bar stays open late till about 2 or 3. I'm pretty sure it's the longest running bar on site. It will be open till about 2 or 3 depending on when they decide to call last orders. I love this bar because I love the Sophie tent, so I'm usually frequenting this bar. Never gets outrageously busy, not like the Lemmy Bar. Does get quite busy, especially during the final Sophie band of the night, but never that bad, really. So it's a good place to duck in, grab a drink, if you're just browsing the festival. That being said, for my money, the best bar for quick service is the New Blood Bar. Again, situated right there in the tent, so you can duck in for a drink, then get back to the music. It's a smaller bar, just with your basic drink options, you know, the core lager, ale, cider kind of thing, but it almost always has the shortest queue of any of the bars. It usually only has a couple people manning it, so the queues that do form will move a bit slower, but you're probably not queuing any longer than you would do at either of the other two bars. So if you know what you want, you need one of the standard drink options, and you're right there, you go to that bar. The amount of people I see queuing at the Lemmy Bar for ages to get the 2 standard lagers, when the New Blood is right there. What are you doing? There are a couple more stands offering more specialist drinks around the arena. Biggest, of course, being the Jägermeister stage that serves, guess what? Jägermeister. Not my drink of choice, but it's there if you like it. Diageo, I think it's how it's pronounced. Diageo Cocktail Lounge have a spot this year just outside of the New Blood. This is usually a small tented kiosk. If you need your cocktail fix this year, I guess, you can go here for this one. And there's usually shade, as I say, because it's normally tented. It gets very, very busy in there, though, especially when the sun or rain start beating down. This year, we have a Guinness stand for the first time, and I am very curious. I love me a Guinness, but in the scorching heat? We shall see. I bet it will be very, very expensive. It appears to be placed right next to the Red Bull stand, which is just outside the Sophie tent, next to those fucking fairground rides. So yes, if you need an energy fix, there's a Red Bull stand there as well, just outside the Sophie tent, selling an array of Red Bull flavours if you drink that stuff. So the main event, let's talk about the stages and where you can see the awesome bands at Bloodstock. So your main stage is the Ronnie James Dio stage. You can't miss it, it's the big one in the middle. You approach it from the right hand side, so that side tends to fill up the fastest. So loop around the back of the sound tower and come at it from the left. If you're looking for a bit more space later on, you can usually worm your way in a lot easier from the left than you can from the right. However, one of the best things about Bloodstock, because of its size and because of how the main stage is kind of really open, it's not too hard to get a good spot for the headliners, even if you haven't been there all day. Sure, you're not going to get to the barrier, but you can find a spot pretty close if you show up between the sub-headliner and headliner. You can just quite easily get yourself in there. It's not a guarantee, of course, but you do have a good buffer. The next biggest stage is the Sophie Lancaster stage, named after the poor girl that was of course murdered for having an alternative appearance. Go support the Sophie Lancaster charity, it's such a worthy cause. You get a great mix of acts on the Sophie stage, some really well established bands, some underground bands. This is my favourite stage at Bloodstock for sure. You can discover so many bands here that you didn't know before really early on in the day. Please check out our lineup video coming out in a few weeks. To see which ones we recommend. But you've also got the heavy hitters as well, like Goliath, Brothers of Metal, King 810. The headliners for the Sophie stage on Friday, Saturday and Sunday always play after the Ronnie James Dio stage headliner. This year it's Candlemass, Zealanada and Biohazard. They usually start immediately after the Ronnie headliner has finished. Depending on the band, that tent can fill up long before you get there after leaving the main stage headliner, so it can be worth deciding if you're prepared to leave the main stage headliner early to get a good spot for the Sophie headliner. Here's a tip though for the Sophie stage. People always love to congregate on the left hand side where the entrance is. Many times I've managed to just sort of worm my way in, go around the back of the sound desk, and on the right there's almost no one there, so please keep that in mind, people. When you enter the Sophie stage, just keep going for fuck's sake. After the Sophie headliner is done is when you get your evening entertainment. It's usually a DJ playing an array of metal tunes. It's usually very obvious stuff. Slipknot, Skindred, Limp Bizkit, etc. They do occasionally do special themed nights. I believe they've got a few planned this year. I forget exactly which ones they are, but they post regularly on the Bloodstock forums, the DJs that do the festival, so follow the Bloodstock forums if you want to hear about that kind of thing. The themes will normally be stuff like 90s, cheese, that kind of thing. This is hit and miss for a lot of people, the late night entertainment. Mike isn't a fan. Me and Ruben go damn near at most nights. I can't explain it. Maybe it's the drinking, but being in a not too busy tent, blasting the words to Psychosocial, and forming impromptu conga lines with my Bloodstock community is such a fun vibe. It's kind of dumb, I guess, but I love it. I always stop off here at least for a little bit every evening. The New Blood stage is one of the reasons I love Bloodstock so much. This is your unsigned stage. This is strictly for up-and-coming bands from the UK and some further afield. The majority of acts are selected by Bloodstock's Metal to the Masses competition, which is a series of battle of the bands that happen around the country. Some other bands get on here too, but the idea overall is it's about showcasing some up-and-coming talent. Not enough people go to the New Blood 10, so here's the best advice I can give you for Bloodstock, and this is a direct quote from my brother. Remember, the New Blood tent is there, make liberal use of it. If you have a gap in your schedule, or anything like that, go to the New Blood 10. Any band you can think of that you love, no matter how big they were, they would have started on stages like this. So go support up-and-coming metal, for God's sake. It's how the scene survives. Some of my favourite Bloodstock bands I've seen were on the New Blood 10. Fellowship, Tribe of Ghosts, Voluntas, Ascaris. Evil got their start when this was called the Unsigned stage. Don't skip this stage just because it's bands you don't know. They get to play Bloodstock for a reason. That's all I'm going to say, so just check them out. And if you have to check out any of them this year, go see Moon Reaper. They are so good, they will blow your mind. New Blood usually hosts the Silent Disco as part of their after-hours entertainment, which it's not every single night, I don't think. I have never gone, but apparently they are loads of fun, according to the people that I know who have been to one of these. You have to queue to get in. It's sort of a one in, one out kind of deal, depending on how many headsets they have, but I've heard they are great fun, and apparently this year they're supplying more headsets, so more people will be able to get in, so maybe this will be the year you can go give it a try. Lastly, we have the Jägermeister stage. This stage isn't categorized per se, it's definitely more up-and-coming acts, but not part of Metal to the Masses. Bands apply in the months leading up to the festival. It's a tiny stage attached to the Jaeger bar. This stage usually, but not always, has the most wacky, fun kind of metal. It's such a small stage. You can get right up in front of the act's faces. It feels like an underground grassroots venue, which I guess is the vibe that they're trying to go for. I know a lot of bands who've played here and then moved up the other stages at Bloodstock, so again, it's really cool to go here and check out some new bands you might not know yet, and then we'll come away loving. This is the kind of stage I like to check out as I pass each day, see what's going on, because it's usually the most fun stage. There's a lot of crazy shit going on. Only issue is it's right there with the main stage right behind it, so sound can be a bit problematic unless you're right at the front. Even though there's smaller bands that play this, because it's such a small stage, it can be quite hard to get in. So I don't know what it's like if you're trying to queue up for that bar, because it's literally attached to it. But fuck it, I'm sure the bands, it's great to see lots of people come to see you at this tiny stage. It's a good time nonetheless. This tent occasionally has some after headliner bands, but that's not that frequent, but it does occasionally happen. I think that about does it for my specific moment-to-moment advice. Here are my main takeaway bits of advice that I think will help you have the best time at Bloodstock. Point number 1, I'll reiterate again, I don't give a damn what the Met Office says. Pack for all weathers. 2, don't feel pressured to camp in Midgard. Yes, it's the party hub of the festival, but Bloodstock is so small, you can camp damn near anywhere and still go over and enjoy what's going on in Midgard. If anything, that can be a much more relaxing time for you, so you can just get away from the chaos when you're ready to leave, basically. Plenty of people prefer doing that, so don't worry if that's what you want to do. Bring some food with you. You don't need to exclusively have your own supply, but just have some stuff with you. I usually have one big meal in the arena each day, and maybe a small portion of chips or something later on if I feel I need it. But I always take cereal bars, snacks, dried fruit, and stuff like that to have in the mornings to get me through most of the day. It saves a lot of money, and it's well worth packing it. Don't pack anything with chocolate though, because even when it's raining, the inside of your camping bag is going to get mighty warm. Go see bands. I won't tell you how to enjoy yourself. If you love going to festivals to get pissed at your tent with your mates, and the music is just an added bonus to you, then that's awesome. You do you. But take the opportunity to see as many bands as you can. Broaden your metal mind. There's so many up-and-coming bands every single year at Bloodstock if the main stage isn't quite done it for you this year. And getting familiar with those grassroots, smaller, up-and-coming metal bands is one of my favourite things to do at Bloodstock, and the bands that you're checking out so appreciate it. So if you see them wandering around after the set, go tell them they did a great set. It's just such a friendly community at Bloodstock, and it's doing stuff like that that just makes it feel more special, you know? You have a gap in your schedule, go swing by the New Blood or the Jaeger stage and check out what's going on. You may discover your new favourite band, and again, these bands deserve your support. They're playing Bloodstock, they deserve a good crowd. Lastly, most important bit of advice, don't be a dick. 90% of the people at Bloodstock are awesome people having the time of their lives and want everyone else to also have the time of their lives. It's the nicest festival I have ever been to, and I really do stand by that. Don't be part of the 10% who are pricks. Look out for each other. And really, lastly, just have fun. Your first time at a new festival can be stressful and daunting. Lord knows, Mike will tell you, I've become a nervous wreck in the build-up to a festival, even Bloodstock. But once that tent is up, and I just take a moment, it's like I'm back at home. It really, really is. It's the most chilled festival you can imagine. So just take it at your own pace and enjoy it. So there you go. Hopefully a comprehensive guide of the most basic tips you might need for your first ever Bloodstock festival. If there's anything I might have missed from other people who've been to Bloodstock before, comment those down below with your tips that you think newcomers should know. And if you're a newcomer with more questions that I haven't covered, comment those too. We can help each other out. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you at Bloodstock, but until then, go listen to some amazing heavy metal, and I'll see you in the next video.